here's another stat for you. America's middle class is further from the top. The middle class is further from the top than in all other developed countries. Now, why am I pointing this stuff out? Because to me, this is the foundation for a revolution, a nonviolent revolution. This is the foundation for it. There's not going to be a revolution in this country because of slavery. There's not going to be, we had that. There's not going to be a revolution in this country because of lack of voting rights for women. There's not going to be a revolution in this country because there's a strong socialist movement, and that movement has decided to overthrow capitalism. That's not why. Those reasons are not why there's going to be a revolution. If there's going to be a revolution in this country, it's going to be a revolution of ideas, number one. But number two, it's going to be brought about for these very things we're talking about. So when I come across stuff like this, I'll read it and I'll think, okay, I need to know this. I need to know these statistics so that I more completely understand why I'm aware that we're heading right for the precipice, right for the edge of this cliff. So that I can understand this discontent. I can understand how the right wing, how the capitalists, how the conservatives have utterly destroyed the American dream. Utterly destroyed it. Not tampered with it, not broken around the edges. But these right-wing sons of bitches have utterly and absolutely destroyed it. So I need to know what the pieces of the American dream that are lying on the ground, what they look like, why they're pieces of the American dream. And that helps me collect and solidify my thoughts, my ideas about, okay, what kind of resistance can be put together to fight this. So I hope it's not boring you. If it is, that's why you have those switches on your radio or your computer. America's middle class is further from the top than in all the other developed countries. And it's what Paul Buchheit says in this article in Nation of Change. It's not just the bottom half that's being battered by inequality. It's most of the rest of us. The U.S. median income is $44,911. Now, it wasn't so long ago, it was just a little over $50,000. It's now down to $44,911. That's only 15% of the mean U.S. income. You know what the mean income is? $301,140. Now, that is greatly skewed by that enormous wealth of the 1% and the 1/10 of 1% and the 1/100th of 1%. That's what sucks that number up. To say that the mean income in the United States is $301,000 is madness. Who do you know? Seriously, who do you know who makes the mean income? Now, I realize when you talk about average and median and mean, you're talking about three different mathematical structures. I understand that. But that ratio where the U.S. median is only 15% of the U.S. mean, that ratio is less than any other of the 27 developed countries listed by Credit Suisse, and much less than the average OECD. What the hell is OECD? Which is 35%. So for the world as a whole, the median is only 8% of the mean, reflecting the fact that half the world's adults average less than $500 in wealth. Half the world's adults. And the last one, the greatest shock, and that is how little is needed to restore some sanity. See, this is where, we really don't need to bring out the guillotine and start beheading people because they come out on their balconies and say, let them eat cake. We don't need to do it. It may come to that. But that's not necessary. This is where bloody revolution is not really required, although for a lot of people it would be extremely emotionally satisfying. But it's not really required. It isn't. How little is needed to restore some sanity into this capitalist system in the U.S. or in North America that we all operate under. And when we come back after this break, I'll just show you how easy it would be and how far away from reality it is, because power never gives itself up willingly. That's not how power, no matter what the power is, it doesn't work that way. Stick around. When we come back, I'll finish this up. Article that was at Nation of Change by Paul Buchheit. More inequality shock. You know, the richest 30 Americans own as much as half the U.S. population. Bottom half of Americans owns a smaller percentage of national wealth than almost all other countries and continents. There's less mobility here than the rest of the world, and America's middle class is further from the top than in all other developed countries. And you know, when I come across an article like this and read these stats, and I just think to myself, but that's not that's not what I've been told all my life, and it's not what you've been told all your life. We were told the opposite, weren't we? And I guess at one time the opposite was true, but the predatory capitalists have strangled so much of everything in this country, not just natural resources, but so-called wealth, money, jobs, the means of production, the environment, the planet, everything. That these statistics now from Oxfam, as horrifying as they are, they're easily understandable if you also understand what the extreme fascist corporate America has done to the country. Then they're not so hard to understand. Now, the last one, the greatest shock of all this is how little is needed to restore some sanity. Okay? As Paul Buchheit writes, extreme inequality means that people without homes are freezing to death in America. On a winter day in 2012, over 633,000 people were homeless in the United States. Based on an annual single-room occupancy cost of $558 a month, a little over $4 billion would provide shelter for every homeless person for the entire year. Do you understand that? $4 billion. The stock market grew in 2013 by $4.7 trillion. A wealth tax of just 0.1%, that would be $1 out of every 1,000, would have provided the $4 billion needed to shelter every homeless American for 365 days. But we have no wealth tax. Even the suggestion of one starts the banshees on the flying monkey right screaming their guts out. What did I hear? This little piglet, Sean Hannity, this derivative little rat that's never had an original idea in his life, he said that when Bill de Blasio was elected mayor and there's going to be a wealth tax to pay for pre-kindergarten, among other things, Hannity made a great big deal by saying he's leaving New York and he's taking all of his assets with him. You little son of a bitch, why don't you go to I don't know, some little country someplace where you could be the big white king. You would like that, wouldn't you, Sean? Even talking about a wealth tax of 0.1%, $1 out of every 1,000, sends these people into paroxysms of greed that have to be unknown in the history of the human race. 0.1%. So, just in terms of where people live, how people live, to have 633,000 people homeless in the United States, and that seems like a pretty low number to me. Okay, this guy who put this article together certainly knows more about these statistical realities than I do, but that doesn't seem like it's high enough. But let's go with it. 633,000 people homeless in the United States on any given winter day. I don't know why he specified winter, maybe to drive the point home of how little it would take to provide shelter for people. But see, that's not going to happen here. A transaction tax, a wealth tax, that's not going to happen. So here's the part that leaves me totally flummoxed. The 1/10 of 1% or the 1%, they have to understand, they have to get that their ride can't go on forever. That at some point, the people are going to say, we're tired of what you've been doing. We are now going to remove you. We're going to collapse your system. We're going to start over. Even though on the one hand, I say that I don't see how people in this country could be motivated to do that. On the other hand, I see that there is a way that this could happen. So if the 1/10 of 1%, or as Occupy says, the 1%, if they understand, and surely on some level they must, or they wouldn't have their private police forces, they wouldn't have their gated, barred, walled-in communities. So they understand this. They get this on some level. Wouldn't it be easier for these swine to give up 1/10 of 1% as a wealth tax to take care of the people who one day will be outside the gates with the flaming torches and the Kalashnikovs? Wouldn't it be better to instead of making $500 million this year, wouldn't it be better to make $400 million or $450 million and take the other little chunk there? When you're talking $500 million, $50 million is a chunk. It's not a big chunk. And put that someplace to keep us natives sedated. I don't know anybody, and I know an enormous number of people in the metro Atlanta area and around the country. It's just, I just do. I don't know why I do, how I do. Maybe it's from being in radio. I don't know anybody on that wealth level. I know some rich people, but to me, you know what a rich person is to me? Somebody makes $1 million a year. Woohoo! That's a really rich person. I know a couple of people who do that. And they don't do it by manipulating hedge funds and all these funny numbers. They're actually in a position where they're earning. They're providing jobs. They're providing blah, blah, blah. I don't know that many, but I know a couple. Most of the people I know are either what used to be called middle class, and I just gave you the reasons why we're not middle anymore, or working class. I don't know these people who are at this wealth level. I know they're there because I see the results. I see their footprints every single day. I see it in the political system. I see it in the way these right-wing rabid dogs who are part of the Republican Party, how they act and react. So I know they're there. I know the Koch brothers exist. I know Sheldon Adelson exists. I know the DeVos family exists. I know the Walton family exists. I know all that. And I just think to myself, it's one thing to be possessed with this kind of greed. But at what point does self-preservation kick in, where the 1% realizes that they will be pulled down and devoured, literally eaten alive, if they don't wise up? This can't go on. How easy it would be to fix. Forget the wealth tax. Just go, all this money that's being generated, and it's not really money that's being generated, but all the little digital clicks and beeps and boops that are being generated by the stock market that goes up, and now it's on a bear market going on right now. Brrr. and then it'll start up again. That is not being generated because there are jobs and investors. It's being generated by manipulating the system in a way that the system has never been manipulated before. So to put a transaction tax on every one of those stinking little manipulations, would that be so bad? Is the greed so what's the word I'm looking for? Quick. So powerful, so big, so huge, the greed, that it doesn't allow for the 1% to guarantee its own self-preservation? That is insane. Literally. I talk a lot about the crazy bastards on this program. I don't just throw that term around as a pejorative, although sometimes I do. But that is really insane. To say, look, if I spend $1, it means that they won't come and get me and burn me out and kill me. But you know, that dollar means more to me than my life, so I'm not going to spend it. We'll be right back.